Hey, come see us live. We're doing our Rumble Time show September 27th in Los Angeles. We'll be in Tempe, Arizona, and we'll be in Burbank, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. And, now there's this new thing that the problem with some vegetables is, first of all, not only the pesticides, but there's this thing called appeal.
Right.
Do you know what that is? Can you talk about it?
We just keep trying to mess with nature. Appeal is a product from Bill Gates that is essentially spraying chemicals on produce that's impossible to wash off, that ostensibly increases the shelf life of those vegetables. It is actually not disclosed what these chemicals are. Part of it is seed oils, literally. There's reports that there's some very problematic, particularly neurotoxic chemicals mixed in there. They're actually literally not reporting it. And Appeal tried to lobby so that we wouldn't even know if it was sprayed on the vegetable or not. And now there's a big push to identify that. But it all goes to this Bill Gates agenda. Bill Gates is literally trying to put up blockers of the sun. He's saying that trees as a tool for carbon capture isn't scientific.
That's right.
He's saying that the future of food is ultra-processed lab-grown meat and not getting back to basics with regenerative agriculture. He's saying that the way, basically all chronic conditions are basically pharmaceutical or vaccine deficiency, not a result of our toxic environment, toxic food system, toxic habits in this country. It's very dark. It's very, very dark. And, I'm not a Luddite. I actually am just calling to follow the clinical realities. And the clinical reality to me is that we are not going to drug our way to better health. We're not going to drug our way to lower healthcare costs. We're not going to drug our way in the midst of this ultra-processed food disaster in our diet, to better human capital, right? I think we should be using technology, but we should be using technology for better farming practices, to get back to basics, to grow healthy food, right, that gives our body the nutrients that we need to thrive. I mean, this isn't rocket science. Right now, Jimmy, a tomato, an organic tomato in the United States, has 70% less nutrients than it did 60 years ago.
No kidding.
Our soil has been so raped by our industrial food system and our practices that our food is more than 50% in many cases less nutrient dense, right? We are trying to out-hack basic patterns of life, of a sunlight, fueling our soil, which fuels the food. We're trying to out-hack that. It's making our food demonstrably less nutrient dense. We're not going to out-hack this stuff. And the Bill Gates kind of innovation philosophy, I have a VC-funded startup, so I talk to a lot of venture capitals about this. I'm not against innovation, but innovating on it, hacking our biology is not going to work. Hacking the systems of soil and the systems of our food and the systems of our body, we need to start appreciating and having awe and understanding those more and getting back to basics on our biological needs. Like, the fundamental problem in what we talk about with metabolic health is that it's just simple. Our cells aren't getting what they need to thrive. They're not getting the sunlight, which is super important. We used to be outside 100% of the time. They're not getting our circadian rhythm is off with our sleep. Our chronic stress, it used to be just hiding when we're, in an acute situation, running from a tiger or something. Now we're in just a constant state of chronic stress. And then we're feeding our body just absolute poison and addictive poison. So we got to get back to basics on that. And the Bill Gates route is just not, I don't think, the path.
Well, first of all, leading doctors used to think the raping of the soil was a big contributor to chronic illness. You never hear about this stuff. I can tell you two things. I know the best tomatoes in the world are San Marzone tomatoes, and they're grown in Italy, which tomatoes aren't even, they didn't even come, tomatoes came from the United States, and they were brought to Italy. People don't know that, but they grow them on this volcanic soil that's rich in all this. So that's why they taste so damn good. And I remember about 30 years ago, I was in Hawaii, and I was at the top of this volcano, and you take a bike down, and we stopped at this little side store, and they had pineapples that they had chopped up, and they were sell you, and they were grown right behind the store, and the volcano, and my mind, I could still remember how it tasted. I never tasted anything that good in my life before. And so people don't realize what's happening with the soil, and people don't realize that the number one owner of farmland in America is a guy named Bill Gates, who has a big idea to poison you with garbage food. One of them is fake meat. He thinks we should all eat bugs and fake meat. And this idea that the cows are the ones that are the biggest. They say that cow farming is the biggest contributor to global warming. But now I'm seeing studies from different universities saying, no, it could be carbon negative, and not only neutral, but negative if you do it correctly. Of course, not factory farming, but what do you call it? Regenerative?
Regenerative agriculture.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane. Industrial farming is potentially a cause of global warming. The way food has been raised throughout history is that there were natural ecosystems with animals and plants being raised together, with the animals grazing, and it's beautiful, right? There's a whole, literally, you go into the rabbit hole, the urine of the animals is actually a natural, pesticide. I mean, you don't need all these herbicides and pesticides because it all works in harmony. And actually, an acre of regenerative farmland produces a higher output than the industrial farming, where everything's just in rows, so you can mechanize it and use more machines because it's in rows. You actually get higher output with regenerative, and because everything is working in unison together, as you said, it's carbon neutral. It's carbon neutral. So what's happened is we've gotten away from natural processes, and that's led to this issue. And the answer is not, as Bill Gates says, more industrial farming that's absolutely killing our soil. By many measures, we have only 40 crop cycles left before the soil is totally just dust. We have to get back, and we can get back to basics and change to a regenerative farming system and invest in technology, robotic technology, to make regenerative farming, which is less mechanized, more efficient, and have an incredible situation. And my question is, or I guess my statement is, we can do that for a lot less than $1,600 per obese American. It's wild, Jimmy. A lot of people ask, what are the motivations behind this? Are there really evil people? I mean, I was meeting with senior members of Congress who are the lead sponsors of this bill to get Medicare and eventually Medicaid funding for Ozempic, which is scored as one of the highest cost bills in American history, and is the most lobbied for bill for the pharmaceutical industry right now. And I just said this to them. I'm like, this bill with the stroke of a pen is $1 trillion for Ozempic. Have you thought about, regenerative farming, or, investing in better food supply, or even making these funds, instead of one size fits all for Ozempic, making them flexible funds where, a lower income kid on Medicaid, the mom could choose maybe healthy food instead of Ozempic, and actually steer her healthcare dollars to what she thinks is best to reverse the obesity for her family. And they just hadn't thought about it. I mean, one of these members of Congress just kind of basically said, yeah, like Novo Nordisk came in, gave me the bill, I introduced it. I mentioned to him, that the point of this bill, the reason people are clapping at JP Morgan conferences is because the second this bill is passed, it's going to be injected to kids. He's like, no, it's not. We're not going to give this to kids. I'm like, then you're going against the FDA. You're going against the American Academy of Pediatrics. No, that's the whole point of this bill. He didn't even understand that. I said, you understand Ozempic's a lifetime drug. He's like, no. I'll put in the bill. It's not a No, sir. The FDA says it needs to be a lifetime drug. He didn't understand this. Like they're not the main character. Like the people introducing this bill. These are, life and death, trillions of dollars of ramifications. And it's just, hey, introduce this. Hey, co-sponsor this. They don't think about it. The idea that we should be taking that $1 trillion a year that's going to go towards Ozempic and help our farmers get to better soil and get to a better regenerative farming system that will actually reduce our chronic disease crisis, hasn't even occurred to them.
Well, the Medicare lobbying for that bill is because Medicare banned paying for weight loss drugs after the fen-phen disaster. So basically, rather than the government going against the public to try to stop these dangerous drugs, the regulators are instead pushing them and trying to stop the activists from stopping it.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right.
They're just, and all the people making these rules from the NIH down, they're just stacked with big pharma people.
I mean, when I was working 13 years ago for the pharma industry, opioids, I think Ozempic is very analogous to the opioid situation, but opioids was was in the news, right? And what did we do as the pharma industry? We shuttled a bunch of donations to pain specialists, just like the obesity specialists, all these new medical specialties, which are total BS. We'd be much better off without. But there were, pain specialists. So we shuttle a bunch of donations to pain specialists. Who was the most prominent pain specialist? Dr. Philip Pizzo, who at the time, 2010 was the dean of Stanford Med School, pain specialist. So we funneled him direct consulting payments, bribes, and we gave him a $3 million grant. You cannot even make this up. But opioid companies gave him a $3 million grant in 2010 to reform the curriculum of the school. So the opioid companies gave him a grant and paid direct. Then he was appointed to the NIH panel on opioid guidelines. That was in 2010, 2011. Philip Pizzo, you can research this. Now, 9 of the 19 people he chose as chair of the panel to give opioid guidance had also been directly paid for by opioid companies.
Of course.
Okay. And what does that panel do? It says that the addiction concerns are overblown and pain is a crisis and full steam ahead on opioid recommendations. My thing, and what the pharma company knows and what all of us has to understand, is we just don't have higher credibility advice than that, like in the world, right? It's like out of all the systems humans have built, right? There's not much higher trust than an NIH panel led by the dean of Stanford Med School with a bunch of doctors from Harvard and other places. Like, that's it. And that apparatus is completely bought off. It's completely corrupt. It's craven. It's terrible. It's compromised. And that's exactly what's happening with obesity medicine guidance right now. And then you've got the media just parroting whatever they say because the media is bought off too. And you've got the tech company, and you're basically anti-science if you disagree with that guidance. I think we're starting to do this, and I think COVID has helped, but we cannot trust any guidance on chronic disease. The record of the medical system on chronic conditions, which is 95% of medical spending, is a absolute travesty. Heart disease has gone up as we've spent more on heart disease. Diabetes has gone up as we've spent more on diabetes. Depression's gone up as we spend more on SSRIs. Cancer's gone up as we spend $300 billion a year on cancer care. It's a disgrace. And the fact that we still don't have a full consensus as the American people that we need to scream BS and actually just fully rethink how we deal with chronic diseases and basically take that expertise out of the medical system, it is a problem. But I think it's something we're getting better on.
Hey, come see us live. We're doing our Rumble Time show September 27th in Los Angeles. We'll be in Tempe, Arizona, and we'll be in Burbank, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.